Hi all, and welcome to another episode of An Evening, even though it's afternoon, with Thomas. And our guest today will be Patrick Pepper. So this should be an interesting show. Here's Patrick's first choice of music, and we'll be back shortly. Hi all, and welcome to another episode. This is part 3 of the Fireside Chats, An Evening with Thomas, and today's guest from the THI membership is Patrick Pepper. And Patrick and I had a good chat last night, and he's quite a knowledgeable young man who's gone through things and phases in his life that we all have, and come through the other side. And this is what it's all about. These shows are for you to express what you want to do, not what I want. So, it's all about empowering yourself and maybe releasing a bit of baggage, and maybe telling some of your stories of your life and how we can go forward and how you've gone forward. So I hope you all enjoy the show. And we're going to bring Patrick on now. Hi, Patrick. Wait a minute. No, I think we're okay. Let me just double check the sound on that. You may have to. Right. Let's try that again. It should be okay. I think we're having sound issues, which is indicative of this format, but we'll see how it goes. I'll get one of the members to say if it's okay. They can hear both of us okay.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of go forward a little bit here.
Hopefully someone on WeMe can give us the nods up that this show's okay, and you can hear both of us loud and clear.
Yes.
And that'll be good. So,
yeah.
Where are we? Welcome, Patrick, and glad to have you on.
Thank you, Thomas.
Chat, yesterday.
Yeah, that was fun.
Why did you particularly pick that song, the first one? And then
I'd
like you to go into an introduction of who you are and your history and biography, so to speak.
Well, I love music. It has really helped me in the last 3 years. Love music, and that song I actually heard, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago, and something about it just almost it pretty much made me cry the first time I heard it. And at that time, I was not a emotional person. I could clamp all that down. I had really too much control of my emotions. And that one just cut right through everything, and went right to my being. And it was something about that song really gets to me, and I really enjoy it.
Good. It's it's a nice lyrical song, and it's got a nice frequency and flow to it.
Yeah.
So who is Patrick Pepper? What is Patrick Pepper?
That's a good question. I am a little bit of everything. I guess I just want to say a quick thing about my parents who have been in my life really important to me. I'm the son of a career educator and a 3-tour Vietnam vet, so our household was never boring, that's for sure. At the worst, one was fire and the other was ice. And at the best, one was a cool breeze on the summer and the other a warm blanket in the winter. So, for all their strengths and weaknesses, they really gave me a kind of grit that would eventually save my life. I was born in, I've always been in the Pacific Northwest. I love it out here. My earliest memories for me was a house we lived in just outside of Seattle, and I remember a few things. Some of the strongest memories was trying to operate a table saw when I was about 4, I think. And everything was going fine until the wood shot out of my hands and everybody noticed what I was doing and freaked out. I always loved how things worked. Always trying to take apart things, flashlights and radios, and it was a little frustrating for my parents, but they learned how to kind of keep that out of my reach. And my first word was dirt, and my first love was music, really. So I had really vivid and amazing dreams from the time I could remember the earliest. And I didn't really know. Some of them scared me. Some of them were amazing and lovely. And I remember packing up and moving out to Forks, Washington, right around 4 or 5, and how much of a change that was to be around a bunch of houses and then to be around a bunch of trees. So it was a really nice place. I kind of wish we had stayed there, but we moved on and moved back into the western Washington area. And then I started to get I have a lot more memories. Pretty normal kid stuff, other than having a real big affinity for mud and animals and trees and things like that. Around that time, some friction in the house. It was mostly about money, and I that actually influenced me. I really didn't like money because, parents were always kind of stressed about it, and one of my first kind of naughty little boy things was to drag a coin collection of my father's out into the creek and start sprinkling it everywhere. And it was me, like, oh, we're having a problem. Well, let's get rid of the money. So, that didn't go over too well.
No,
but So I mean, I was always pretty steady, kind of balanced, and I really enjoyed exploring. And
so you would describe yourself as more at home in the rural areas rather than a city boy? No.
Exactly, that's very true. I'm much more comfortable in the woods in the dark than in the city in the light, truly. It's just, there's a lot going on there. Fortunately for me, we always had some sort of a place like that where I could go and enjoy.
So you're not in favour of the city of light pill?
No, that's not for me. I through what I've been through, I believe that your body actually has to feel what's going on in order to understand it and to heal it. Because the power that made the body can heal the body. And I'm living proof of that. So,
Good.
No, that pill is not for me. Actually, pills in general are not for me.
No, exactly. Enough of pills. We can fix everything ourselves with the effort applied.
Yeah,
and
it's
also,
not easy, but it's
once
worth
people realise their own true self, and this is part of the shows of the Thursday. Yes, people are interested in the intel and the clowns.
Hey, me too.
The clowns are doing this and the clowns are doing that. But the bulk of the show is more to do with getting people to empower themselves and realise they have all the abilities they need to become self-sufficient and to just be a basic, nice human being, which we've kind of gone away from.
And it's a relatively new thing for us not to be, what's the word? I guess, kind of self-sufficient. It's a pretty new thing within the last, 75, even maybe 50 years for us to be pretty self-sufficient and creative.
So I eroded our self-sufficiency by processed food and computers, governments,
Yeah.
religions, it's all crutches.
But yeah, we bought in.
Down to the justice or just us system and the police and the hospitals. The doctor knows better. Well,
Right.
really, why does the doctor know better? Yeah.
Well, we want to trust. We want things to be, it's just kind of a natural thing for us to trust things that will work, and that trust has been abused, and
absolutely,
it's very difficult to kind of come to that realization. As a kid, young, in child life, I bought into whatever was put in front of me because it was just so new and so fun. And, I remember going to church and really enjoying the people, but being really bored when the words pulled out. Goodness. All the words. And I'm like, why can't we talk to, these people or run and play around,
Yeah.
So, as a child, I really tried to enjoy myself and was really confused when there was strife and, why is this happening? And of course, the way my mind works is I want to fix it. I want to find out. Yeah. I loved knots as a kid. Like I loved undoing the knots. That was one of my favorite things to do, oddly enough. And, I always tried to fix my parents' issues and anybody else's issues who had anything going on. And, as a kid watching these, I just remember being so small and these titans in my life, these, about the closest thing to gods you could think of as a child anyway, these people who are so capable and so loving, be so angry and so, frustrated with the world. And it's hard as a kid to see that,
Yes, this is part of the problem. We have to, learn to create again.
Yeah.
And we have to learn to create a better way and not
and be brave enough to
follow the old world order because they failed. I've said this on the main show. They failed.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's we have to be brave enough to fail in our attempt to do it. Yeah. And that's what so many parts of being resilient and adaptive is. When you're failing, then you're learning something.
Yeah, I always like a line from a song. Styx did. A winner is a loser who got up and gave it one more try.
Yeah, that's right. I like that.
And that's it. I've failed many times in life. We all have.
Yeah.
But then, if you see failure as a problem and as an issue, you're going to end up going into the mire with it, and then you're going on to the swinging metronome I've been talking about recently, depression and excitement.
Right.
It's too much. And you've got to see failure as a learning opportunity. And speaking to you yesterday, you kind of embodied that, but we'll go more into that later in the show.
Yeah. So, I didn't always, I didn't always pop back up. That's for sure.
No, neither did I. But it's, so, at which stage in your life do you decide that you would wake up and see the world for what it is that's not correct?
Yeah, I think in a way, I had it, and I think this is my personal theory with children is they have it, and then what they learn while they're here, and what they learn is just givens and just trusting things. They eventually lose contact with that intuition and always had a really strong instinct. And, going through school, it was really difficult for me. I'm kind of a mover. Even now I'm using my hands to talk, there's nobody here and I'm moving my hands around. I really liked the people once again. I really liked some of the subject matter. I was always in it, but then paperwork showed up and I had to sit still for 8 hours. And it's a really archaic system for children who are the embodiment of joy and bouncing, they bounce around, So, and this is coming from, my mother was a career educator. She dedicated her life to educating children and giving them, a safe place to be who they are. And she was constantly frustrated by the curriculum and the environment that they would give children, but she's in this system, and she just did her best every day for many years, and she finally settled on third grade after teaching all of the grades, even being a principal and a vice principal. She settled on third grade because kids still find adults useful at that age. So she spent a good 30 years of her life teaching third graders, and I grew up in a school. You know, my daycare was an empty school. I would go to the library, and like every boy in this culture, you end up in the W section, in the war section. And I spent hours and hours just pouring through everything, techniques and equipment and strategies, and just this really kind of like it was a game thing. And my father, who had experienced it, never talked about it. I mean, he would grow a stone face whenever I'd ask him about this thing or that thing or this hero or that. You know, he was, I give him a lot of credit for not feeding that fever, really. Yeah. Feeding that kind of sickness that the initiation of force is okay, and you know, I really appreciate that.
It's kind of good that you had parents that were supportive, because one of the issues in the alternative media, I've said this on the shows, I see patterns a lot before other people. And some of the patterns I see is there's many of us that are in the alternative media have gone through stages of parents not being supportive, parents being abusive, teachers and school, teachers being abusive to the same people, and school not resonating, and in essence working against you, because they know the ones that are awake right from the off, and the ones that are not going to play the system the way they want it to be. And then they roll on from school, and then suddenly the police start turning up and harassing them, playing games, and it's something that's enmeshed right through the awake community.
There's a lot of
parents supported you. So.
Yeah, it gave me a lot of strength. I'm very thankful for that. You know, I think that was one of their goals, to let me know that, you know, and that's one of my goals, that for my children, to let them know that they can talk to me. And you know, it wasn't always the kind of support a child needs, because parents get frustrated and they holler, and we have no idea the kind of impact we have on a child, because we are so calloused to words and to emotions, and even when you think you're having just a normal conversation, it can be really heavy for a child. So you know, there was some of that, but gosh, I do that too with my kids sometimes. So I in school, they labeled me as a ADD child, you know, and you know, it's such I think back on it now, and it's just such a tough position for parents to be told by doctors and school counselors that this is, and it's just, that's the system that these doctors and these counselors have, whether they're aware of the damages or anything. It's just what they're given, these tools. And they don't have the best tools to communicate with the child, because it just seems like, and it seemed like this for a long time, like something was wrong with me. You know, I'm taking these special classes and have to go talk to the doctor about medications, and it wasn't until long after school that I realized through a really great doctor named Dr. Alman. He's in Tacoma here in Washington, and he's got a great series of educational videos and books about how the ADD mind, it's not attention deficit disorder, because a lot of ADD folks can laser focus. So there's not the deficit there. It's just lined up differently. And the main difference is it's blood flow in the brain. Blood flow for ADD children and adults is just different. And there's about 8 or so or 9 or so different kinds, and you can have combinations of all these different kinds of blood flows that's in your brain. So, you know, for me as a child to be handed this medication that I would take, and I just would be, I particularly, I remember at the bus stop looking at a cricket for a very long time, then all of a sudden the bus is honking and all my friends are on the bus and I didn't even, it was not for me. It was not the way. And,
the ADD, had it been invented a decade earlier, then they would have labelled me as well.
Right.
And the reality is certain children have been coming in over the last 50, 60 years with a different vibration, and they've already been educated, many of them anyway, and unfortunately the system routed them into parents that were abusive, particularly early on. I likened it to, I don't know whether they do it now or they do it in America, but the teacher, if the class were too rowdy, would scratch the nails down the chalkboard.
Oh, man. Ugh.
Now, that, to explain to people who haven't got ADD, that's the equivalent the child is experiencing most of the day until it gets older and learns to adapt to the frequencies. The problem here is they've come in to help, and the frequencies are vastly different to what they're used to, and so it's like a grating noise against themselves.
What a mess.
And so most of these children are reactionary. Most of these children are clever and don't need their type of brainwashing and know it's been brainwashing, and most don't agree with the curriculum, which I told my teacher no one said in terms.
That doesn't go over well.
He was teaching crap, it just but the problem is you're in a young body with a newly learning brain, and you're trying to talk to adults in a child's body when in essence you're trapped in a higher dimensional body, and actually you do know better, but that's not the way society tells you. The teacher's the right thing, and the doctor knows better, and the hospital and the police know better.
Right. Is giving that power away, and you know what? That's exactly why I believe, and I got this from an amazing woman named Maria Montessori. She basically set up this system of education that helps anyone become a fully functioning human being. And the thing that I really appreciated about her whole thing was it gives children a place at the table of society. It listens to children. It's a child directed learning. You're following the child while they're going after their interests, and just these wonderful, it's a wonderful system that I hope eventually becomes adopted on a larger scale. And it's grown like wildfire. But it's very much so worth a look up and a study. Cause I'll tell you what, when I first heard about it, I wanted to go back to the infant toddler class and learn what they were doing, because it's all motor skills and with the hands, because us humans, we have these amazing things called thumbs and hands, and that really makes a person do whatever it is they choose to do.
My argument was in school is that the subjects being taught were not interesting. It wasn't, it didn't generate an interest. I was clever at arithmetic, algebra and all that nonsense, no. But I was clever with arithmetic. I didn't need a calculator. I used to get into trouble because I wouldn't bring a calculator in. I said, I don't need a calculator, I can do it.
See, that should be celebrated right there.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? So it becomes a war of minds, of which
and wills.
You're the child, And somebody
Right.
says, "What do you think? You're so clever. Come up with the curriculum." So I did. And little did I know that was the curriculum from the 14th century that the Catholic Church
Oh,
shut down
wow.
almost to a T. And basically the top subject was astronomy, because in it, people are always, going back from day one, always looked up to the sky. There's a reason for doing that. And so they have an interest. And there's a lot of people in America and around the world, particularly in the 70s with the Apollo program, and then you were going to build the shuttle. And people have a general interest in space and what's going on
Absolutely.
in the sky. Whether you're interested in ETs or any of that, there's just a general interest.
Yeah. Exploration,
It could be to do with astrology, or just the general sciences. Now, kids of my time, let's say I was 9 when Apollo was the moon landing. That's all a lot of us spoke about. Apart from I grew up in a very soccer region,
Everton,
heavy soccer region, So I used to have this in maths where you would go, Johnny and blah blah went up a hill with so many apples, and he bought so many apples, and he lost so many apples. Why don't you talk in soccer terms? And at least it generates an interest. So the astronomy incorporated maths, which most kids hated, particularly in my class. They hated chemistry, which was a single subject. They hated physics even more. But suddenly, if you find a general point of learning that a child's got some interest in, you can mask the other subjects and envelop it into that curriculum. And then suddenly they're not realising they're learning high-level maths, high-level chemistry, high-level physics. Of course, now it's called the sciences.
Right.
But you've got to put it in a subject that is of interest to begin with.
Right. Well, and so many different people learn so differently. Yeah. I'm a visual, hands-on person. That's kind of how the best way that I learn. I mean, I didn't find success in school until I think it was senior year when I found shop class, and I was staying after school and getting A's in that class, and I loved it. And it really was that thing I needed to get into and to do. And I would get all these report cards throughout my career of education. That was a pleasure to have in class, a disruption to have in class. And my poor mom would just look at that and go, how do you do that?
Yeah, my report cards went down in the annals. Trust me. the teachers, there was some that I knew and tried, but because you get into a situation where it feels like you're fighting everything, and so sometimes you don't always recognise the ones at that age who are actually trying to help you,
Right.
I always had this thing about authority, and I still do, because everyone is just as important as everybody else. Just because Mr. Trump's the president doesn't make him more important than you or any of these listeners. It's just a job, and
he's a human. He breathes, he bleeds, he shits. you know, I mean, that's a human.
Tom Cruise, whatever. He's just somebody that's on the TV. Is he more important than somebody else who cleans the toilets or brushes the streets or mends computers? No.
Not at all.
It's just a different job. And we have to get away from that and pedestal people, because everyone is important. And this is why we're doing these shows.
That's right.
Because everyone...
That's why I listen to them.
Everyone has their own opinion and should have their own opinion.
Right. We need to hear from everybody. I mean, many hands make light work, and we have a heavy, heavy load going on here that we need. We need, everybody, So, my working career, that was my everything. After I got out of high school, I think I had a D average in high school. I just hated the paperwork and kind of gave up on it, and really just enjoyed my time as much as I could with people and just the projects and the social things. And I really loved work, though. I could work that, for everything that I missed, all the lessons I missed from my dad that I just didn't quite grasp onto. The one that I really picked up on was work. And, I started installing security systems right out of high school. And that was a lot of fun. I really liked doing that. Having the van and all the tools, and you got to go here and do this job and then go on to the next one. I was living the life and really loving it and learning a lot and feeling like I finally found something that was me. And then this company I was working for was a smaller outfit. And I don't know if you remember a company called Tyco back in the day, but they bought up all these little security system companies and said, hey, we're doing an inventory of everything. Work's going to be just a little slow for a couple months, and then we're going to come right back at it. You'll be a part of Tyco. We'll be, we bought Sensormatic. We bought, the one United States manufacturer of security goods, and we're going to be good to go. And 6 months later, I was laid off, and we come to find out that some person in the company had been buying champagne fountains and gold coat hangers and embezzling money and just partying nonstop. And that was my first kind of introduction to the poison of greed and in
a bit like the
our
DOD
world.
then.
Man, yeah, it was pretty similar. I mean, a lot of that same, and I call it an energy signature because people did things using words and this and that. So I see that same energy signature. I think that was the first time it bit me and made me go, oh, everything's not just rosy and beautiful, and my dad might be right here.
You mentioned earlier about
that was
home security systems, and I've got to tell this story. One of the jobs I've done is working for social services, and it's mainly to do with the elderly, but there's some to do with errant people who have gone into the prison system. Some of them, the social workers, were dealing with parole and different stuff. And they started running a program where prisoners could come out early if they took a job. So, and they would reduce the prison sentence. This guy was in for house burglary, and the social worker gave him a job installing home security systems.
Oh my God! Hey Fox, I got a chicken coop over here needs fixing.
I'm thinking,
wow.
Me personally, I would lock up every social worker because I think they've got more issues than the clients. That's the type and levels of stupidity that we have to put up with. I mean, hello. The guy might have been reformed, but it's
that's just way too tempting. You gotta, he's gotta, working something else.
So, during our chat yesterday, you were talking about clearing charges and the emotional mirror. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I sure can. So I've done a lot of work through men's group, and they've taught a lot of really amazing things. And actually, I had heard of this thing, the emotional mirror, before in a book called The Four Agreements, which I recommend to anybody. It's a wonderful book, and the four agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make any assumptions, and always do your best. And I really like that. But in that, it has a story of, I think it was the Aztec. It's an Aztec story of, I'm not going to try to recall it, but it talks about the mirror. It talks about the emotional mirror. And all the world around you is an emotional mirror. Yeah. All of it. People, artwork, trees, animals. It's that feedback that is so important to learning something. And the emotional mirror, when you see someone you love or someone you despise or whatever that is, whatever it is that you get triggered by their actions, it's usually a little thread that leads to your shadow. So it's
your own flaw.
I'm trying to think of a trigger I had a while ago. Oh yeah, okay. So I did a process where you basically are looking at that emotional mirror and trying to figure out what it is. So there was a man who was near me who went with me, and he lived pretty close to me. So they said, say something to this person that like a judgment or something. So I looked at this man and I said, I don't trust you because you're close to home. Now, at that time, I had just been, I think a year and a half before that, I had been electrified and almost died on the job. I caught a hold of 277 at 20 amps and got cooked really good. And, but I want to focus on this emotional mirror thing is that I told him that, right? Well, at the time, I didn't trust myself. They said, after you say that judgment to the man, now say it to yourself. So I said, I don't trust you because you're close to home. I had just met this man, and he's close to my home. Well, that judgment turned back around on me. Oh, wow. It shattered some glass. I was just, it just blew me away because that was so true. I didn't trust myself because I felt like a completely different person. I was in pain all the time. I was, being really grumpy with my kids and wife and, yelling at them and having to be, sent out of the house a few times to go, calm down. So it was a big eye opener to me to look into that mirror and to see that the things I see in you is the things that I find in me. And subconsciously, we all do that to everything, to a beautiful piece of art. It can, and now they say triggers, right? Trigger alert. Well, trigger, it's just an emotional trigger. So it can be a beautiful thing as well. It can be you looking at a flower and going, oh my God, it's just so beautiful. Well, hey, guess what? You are, in fact, yes, you're looking at something that's beautiful, but something about that flower is something about yourself that you see, that you feel. And it can be the same thing. It's that two-way street thing. And then, you see somebody that, I don't know, you had a run-in with when you were a kid or at work long ago or something. Whatever that emotional trigger and judgment is of that person, you might want to follow that into your own self and your own past. And it is not fun. I've been doing, self-work for the last 3 years since I got hurt and it is not fun at all, but it is so worth it. Yep. So worth it. You are worth it out there. Everybody listening, you're worth it to go digging into your shadow and to find it. You're not alone. Everybody has it, The crazy guy out there on the street who's muttering to himself, well, we all do that same thing. It's just we don't do it out loud. So that emotional mirror is kind of the learning device for finding that shadow and to looking into your past. And it's all your past, trauma and muscle memory and it usually comes out in excuses or numbing or violence or unexplained sadness or projection. That's another thing that when someone's yelling at you, it's not about you. Maybe even if you're wrong, but their emotional trigger and they're upset so much that they have to yell at you or try to do something. That's because within them, they are in that much turmoil. And so it's not about you when people are mad at you and yelling at you. It's not about you when people think you're crazy or stupid or whatever it is. It's about them. So it's not only a tool to learn for yourself, but it's a tool to shield yourself from all of this crazy stuff that's out there in the world. And
we're going to need in bucket loads going forward.
Yeah.
I've started warning recently about the masks of illusion. Yep. And one of the things I said is, how can we all demand the truth and all knowing if we can't be truthful with ourselves?
Well, and the more you're truthful with yourself, the more truth you will find. The more powerful you will become. The more you you learn from that shadow. Because a shadow is, yes, it's an uncomfortable thing, but it's a learning tool as well. It's a powerful learning tool, you know?
Yeah, it's the best thing you can learn. Not from what I tell you or what anyone else tells you on the TV or in the alternative media. The best truth you learn is yourself.
Right, and that's the most difficult one to learn, for sure.
Yeah, because we've had these masks of illusion, and there's so many different masks to cover insecurities, fear, trauma, and the appearance of being wealthy, because we're playing a competition game with friends, family, and neighbours. Right. When actually we're all in massive amounts of credit card debt. I include myself in that.
Yeah.
You know, so you go into the illusion, and in the end, it becomes a millstone around your neck. But you have to keep the same face, where people tend to congregate with their own level of earnings, so to speak, and then suddenly there's a downturn, and then people carry on spending like it was before the downturn, to keep up the illusion to other people. And all that illusion is destroying yourself.
Yeah, that illusion is a powerful thing.
It's easier to go, you know what, I can't afford this lifestyle, I'm going to step down. It's not a slight, but we perceive it, too many perceive it as a slight, that they've gone from a 4-bedroom home with a pool and half an acre down to a rental property. Well,
or whatever.
A lot of it comes at a cost of increasing debt, where you endure a life of indenture to the whole system, because that's basically what they want you to do. The idea. Yeah,
that's that trap.
It's the trap.
That honey trap.
Too many of us have played that illusion game, the consumerism. That's what kills us.
It's just not. It's not fulfilling. I mean, on the outside, yes, and maybe to other people, maybe it's fulfilling a little bit to see you in this way, but it's much more powerful when you're vulnerable and honest and accountable and open with what your situation is. And if people don't accept it, believe me, they will move on, and you will fill that void with someone who is in the same position, or someone you can learn from, or that person will choose to help. I mean, it goes so many different ways. I do want to just get kind of this part out of the way and talk about my injury, Thomas. Do we got a little time before?
Yeah, carry on.
Oh yeah, we're good. Okay, so I like I said, I loved work. I did the security thing, and after that fell through, I did pressure washing and roof repair. I was a toilet jockey for a while. I was just replacing toilets, which is not fun, by the way. No. And then I tried to go back to school. That was just not my thing. This paperwork and all that. Once again, love the people, but I not really interested in what was going on there. Couldn't really find my way. Then I got picked up by a family friend in a painting business. Had a great time painting. Unfortunately, on that job, my brother had passed away. He'd moved in with us, and it's one of that was actually a part of my shadow process that I got out of the way a while ago. Was that I let him walk out the door drunk, and he wrecked a car, and the car strut failed. It was a beautiful 1969 Triumph Spitfire. Oh, such a wonderful car, but it flipped over, and he died from that, and it was really hard after that. I really had to put the pieces back together, and once again, work really helped me. It really helped to go to work and get something done, and then my love was laboring. I got kind of poached by another family friend for concrete services, and I loved that. It was great. Then the recession happened, and I switched over to a family electrician business and learned that trade, and then the recession happened and squished us. I did maintenance for a while, and then that ran out, and then I got into the Columbia Center in Seattle, and I started from the ground up there and working nights and just obsessing myself with that work. It's a fascinating building and really unique, and I would do jobs that nobody wanted to touch, replacing sewer pumps and working on these just strange one-off devices that were all over the place. And Good Friday, April 2014, it was a Friday. I should have just left this thing alone. It was a relay that used 277 light switch to turn on a 120 fart fan. And I was in there trying to figure out why this odd looking relay wasn't working. And I talking on the phone, got up on the ladder and grabbed onto something I thought was off, and it was live, and it hurt a lot. It was like lava hands were squeezing you out of your body, and you couldn't do anything about it because there's something about that 277 voltage that locks up the human nervous system and just continues to squeeze.
Yeah.
And
I've had
it's
off at 240.
Yeah. Oh, that hurts. Yeah. And I was alone. I was on this wooden rickety ladder, and I don't even know how long it was. I think it was about, I'm guessing anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds on the voltage, and my vision closed up to about a quarter size. Started doing the tunnel vision thing, and the wooden ladder that I had tried to replace 4 budget seasons in a row because I felt it was unsafe saved my life. It wiggled enough to pull me off of the voltage, and I came crashing through the ceiling. I don't remember. It's pretty fuzzy in there, but I ended up calling my boss, and 911 me out of the building. I got very fortunate. There was definitely something in play there that helped me survive that.
Yeah.
I think a part of it was the giant iron or steel column that I had my arms wrapped around. I think part of that pulled the energy, but either way, I was scooped out. I was fucked up. I was cooked. Since this has happened, I notice in shows and movies they have little funny things where people get shocked and you see the little skeleton and they they're a little disheveled or whatever. Man, it's not a shock. It's a cook. You burned your thumb on something before and it hurts for days, right? Yeah. Well, imagine your nervous system being the thing that burned you from the inside out. It was really a huge blow to me. My ego, it was an actual ego death. Like I am not the same person as I was before. Before I was calm and collected, and I could split 5 different things into my mind and work on them at the same time. I juggled lawyers and financial types, and you want to talk about some babies when it gets a little hot or cold or or something smells a little bit. Oh my, they project very much so, and I could handle it because I knew it wasn't mine. I was fine. They could do whatever they wanted. I knew it wasn't me. Yeah. And I was that fixer they'd send into a difficult client, and that I am not that person. I lost probably about half of my strength and a lot of my coordination, and my mind is just has just been a mess for a long time. And it doesn't sound like it sounds like you took that as an opportunity. Well, yeah, I'd say that happened about a year ago. It was definitely a huge reassessment. I have done a whole lot of work for about 3 years now. I didn't take it laying down. They gave me pain pills and kicked me out the door after about 4 hours of being in the emergency room. And I knew that I had to do a day on the pain pills and a day off. And the days off, everything hurt. It felt like rocks were pouring over my shoulders and my hands constantly. The only relief I had was to go outside and lay down on the grass, which I've come to find out later that's exactly what I needed to do. I needed to ground.
The ground.
And I would stand in a spot, and then I'd stand in a different spot. If I stood in the same spot again, the grass beneath my feet would die. I mean, there was a lot coming out of me and it was just, I didn't like being in the house. I didn't like being outside. I didn't like being anywhere. It was awful. I was truly scooped out. So, my wife would, go ahead.
Just for the benefit of the listeners, while you just mentioned it, what he's just explained is why we talk about on the Thursday show about the grounding, the centering, and the shielding. The grounding releases some of the negative frequencies. That's what it's about, to spread the load. And that's basically what Patrick is describing. There was frequencies in him that was not conducive to him. And Mother Earth takes some of that and recycles it and spreads it there.
Did a lot of heavy lifting for me in those early days.
Yeah.
No worries. My wife would make me, she'd make me breakfast, and I'd be sitting there eating breakfast, and she'd come home on her lunch break, and I'd still be sitting there just staring at the wall. And she'd ask me, what did you do today? And I looked down and I ate my breakfast. And it was, I laugh, but it was a really dark time for me. That's where the grit that my parents had showed me and taught me really came into to paying off. Cause there were times where, I didn't want to go on. There were times where it was too heavy, and every time I would think that something would happen that day, somebody would call. One of my good friends, he came by, didn't know what had happened because I shut down, man. I didn't talk to anybody. I was so embarrassed and so hurt and felt like a stranger in my own body. And he came by and it just really started this kind of path of healing, and I started taking the stuff called Be Sure, because I didn't know how to, I had a lot of experience with wounds, and my father had told me a lot about how to treat them and kind of battlefield medicine sort of thing. And Epsom salt baths were amazing. Getting that magnesium in you, I can't tell you. I'm pretty sure that most of us listening to this right now, including myself, are magnesium deficient. It's a huge piece of health.
Clive Takala talks a lot about that.
Yeah, I love that guy. Yeah, he's awesome. I did every trick in the book to try to heal, and I'm still doing it. I am not satisfied with where I'm at, even though I'm finally starting to see some benefits. There's just so many pieces. You could probably do a whole show on just that.
So the question remains, since you got electrically zapped, is your favourite band AC/DC?
See, now, I was gonna say that one of my jokes is, Ride the Lightning is an awesome song, but a shit experience. You don't want any part of that experience. It's a great song. Love it. In fact, I'm looking for a Ride the Lightning t-shirt if anybody's got one and wants to part with it. I'll pay for that. You don't spark after you get shocked. You steam. So just
right.
That. So
we're gonna steam along then and go on to your next topic, which is
a
big one: learning from your shadow.
Yes.
Where else did it show up in your life?
Yes. That is the question. Whenever you get a charge with someone, and you just can't let it go, or you're triggered heavy, something that I've learned is to ask yourself, where else does this show up in my life? Where else have I seen this? When else have I felt this? And that's another thread going to that shadow. And another thing I want to say about the shadow is that it's one of these things where it's a combination, right? Drake loves that combination. I appreciated that that reference to things. Is it's a combination. It's a combination of yourself and you dealing with it. And it's a combination of you getting some help. You know, whether it's a loved one or a professional psychologist or going to a group like MKP, which I'll plug here, which is a really great resource for men. Deal with it yourself as much as you can, but know this, that your shadow will hide on you. Your shadow you'll think you got it in front of you, and then, you'll get triggered by something. And when you do, it's important not to just numb it or walk away from it or dismiss it. It's important to take 5-10 minutes. No matter where you are, what you're doing, just take 5-10 minutes and really think about, where else have I felt this in my life? Where else has this come up for me? And that happens to me all the time. I'm not a calm and collected person like I was. I can't handle poisonous people anymore, and
No.
I get triggered all the time, and I have to really be aware of where that came from and work on trying to process it and clear the charge. And I would encourage all of you that if you have a charge with someone you love or like or a friend, to look them in the eye and just say, hey, I got this thing that's just burning on me. I got to get it out. I just want you to know, I love you, but this thing really made me upset. And find the thread, find what experience that was. And when you share that with someone, it has a power beyond words to heal, to clear the charge, to get it out of you. And once you really look at it, and this is why I say get help, because it's hard to see your own shadow. I mean, sometimes you turn around, you might catch it, but it's important to try to keep it in front of you as much as you can. So, and this song I picked out, 46 and 2 by Tool, it talks about the shadow. And if some of you are triggered by this song, I would encourage you to go look up the lyrics. And there's actually a really good one. I think I had posted it on the MeWe that actually goes into the explanation of what 46 and 2 is and really gets into it. And it's really good. I like all kinds of music, but if you can hang in there and understand the lyrics, it's a powerful thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. This shadow and shadow work and the inner side we've kind of been talking about, cosmic voice and more so in THI. I can have the ability to see forward of what's coming. Again, it's to do with seeing the patterns, and I knew it was going to be rough last year, mentally for people, and even rougher this year mentally, finding out who's who
and emotionally.
Nobody likes being fooled, and rest assured, every single person on this planet has been fooled. Whether you're yourself, you, or the general in the Pentagon, or the Prime Minister in Britain, or the President of the United States, they've all been fooled. They've all been told.
They all got shadows.
Now, the key is, do you hold your hand up and go, you know what, I've made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Am I going to mask that in an illusion and make out that I haven't made a mistake and carry that baggage? Or am I just going to go, you know what, I slipped up here, I'm sorry about that, and move forward and take the consequences? Too many won't take the consequences. This is why we talk in the show about personal responsibility, because it's something too many of us lack. And this is the main reason why we have a control structure. Whether people like that idea or not, some people won't like it. No, it's just the cabal. No, it's actually us. Because if we were more personally responsible, we wouldn't need all these systems and all these controls. We're not personally responsible as a collective. Might be individually, but not collectively. And so this is why we have to have just us systems. and police the way they are, and governments acting the way they are, because we've dissolved our personal responsibility. I've spoken in the last 4 or 5 shows, and previous, but more so in the last month or so, about the government waste. Trump just decides to give 50 million out of our funds to his daughter's latest gimmick. You know, Pentagon wasting money. Someone posted a picture on the page of thousands of acres of planes costing trillions just sitting there. Most of them have never even been used. Again, that's wasting our money, and we've forgotten that banks and governments don't have money. They have our money. And it's so simple, but I explained this to an old lady once who was getting a bit agitated in the bank about how long it was taking to be served. I said the solution is to take your money out, all of it, because then they don't have any money. So she said, what do you mean? I said, well, banks don't have any money. They only have our money. And she said, that's the most profound thing I've ever heard for a long time. But it may seem simple, but this is the things we've forgotten, because we've just kept handing over our power, handing away our abilities. And this is going back to previous generations, not only the last one or the one before, but many, many thousands of years ago. Just giving our abilities away, giving our power away, giving responsibility for the governments, for the police, for the courts, to fix life for us, because it's convenient. Well, no, it's not. That you are paying for that convenience. This is why we have the control structure. Once we stand up and are personally responsible, caring and sharing for each other, do we really need government when we can run it ourselves? That's the ultimate goal going further down the line. If we don't like the government, then we have to learn to look after ourselves, be self-sufficient, and create some system that's more suitable for we the people, and not them, the 1%. We're going to go. Have you finished on the shadow side?
Well, the shadow side's never finished, but I think folks get the idea that I think that's a lot of concepts for now. I've got some more, but we can save that for another time, or I'll put something up on the MeWe.
We're going to have the Tool song. We'll be back shortly with more from Patrick Pepper. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour this afternoon of the wrongly called an evening. I suppose it's evening in Europe, so that it still fits. But we've got Patrick Pepper on today, one of the members of THI, and also of our MeWe group. It's for people who don't like Facebook. And Patrick's been telling us some of his life story and how he overcame and survived quite an horrific work injury, and how he's been dealing with his shadow side and emotional mirror clearing, which is I think is rather admirable for such a young man, and so you should be inspired by yourself more perhaps than you realise, Patrick. Anyway, Patrick will now come on, and I won't make a joke about it, because I got into trouble last time when I mentioned about does my butt look big in this dress. But anyway, Patrick's going to talk about you're not fat, you're toxic.
Yes,
and how much
that is that is a book by Stephanie Relfi. You're not fat, you're toxic. And in kind of the early days of me being injured, the doctors, they don't really understand electrical injuries right now, and they would ask me questions, and ask me if I would come in for a study. And, you know, I for the first time in my life was yelling at people who were servicing me, who were serving me. And, you know, I didn't understand how they could not tell me anything to do. They would hand me, you know, pain pills and ask me the same questions every time I went in there. It was very frustrating, and I was scared, and I was mad, and I was hurt, and I was expressing that to the fullest. I mean, I always appreciate people who are in service to others, like bus drivers, servers, even police officers and EMTs and anybody on the street picking up garbage. You know, I've always appreciated that. I've always tried to be a helper of the helpers, so to speak. And I was arguing with bus drivers and cops and servers over nothing. And I had no answers, and that was really upsetting to me. So I got a little better after a couple of months. I just things had sort of cleared up. I was still in a lot of pain, and I was still numbing myself with alcohol, and I mean, it made a lot of my symptoms a lot easier to handle. And that was actually the worst thing I could do, because alcohol is a neurotoxin. Yeah. It numbs you first, gives you that, you know, whatever that feeling is of kind of that rush. And then when your body's processing it later, it's killing your liver. It's leaving kind of this really nasty buildup on your myelin lining, or myelin lining. I'm not sure what that, and it's the worst thing that I could possibly be doing. And I did it for almost 2 years. But, I got this book, called You're Not Fat, You're Toxic by Stephanie Relfi. And it explained that we're not necessarily fats. Well, there's a lot of saturated fats that are really good for you, actually. I craved avocados after I got injured. I've been going to, counseling every week for the last 3 years. And, afterwards, I would just, for some reason, I'd find myself buying these ridiculously overpriced avocados at the store, because I had to have it. And I was eating eggs in the morning, and just, I wasn't eating as much as I used to, but I was definitely having a craving for these things without realizing it. And, so in this book, it talks a lot about toxicity and all the things that are out there and we know about the you know, all the poison, pharmaceuticals and all the Roundup, which is basically watered down Agent Orange being, you know, bathed in most of our wheat supply. And, you know, there's a lot of stories of that coming out. We know about that. But the one really sneaky one that I didn't realize how much damage it was doing to my body and does to everybody is sugar. Yeah. Sugar. It reduces your ability to heal, because it makes all of your capillaries, the tiny, tiny little, vessels, it makes them rough, and it makes it harder for your body to do the natural clean it out thing. So your blood brings in, or your body brings in new blood to an area, and then that blood takes, you know, the waste out of there, and then your liver cleans it out, and yada yada. But and sugar, it's not just the processed foods. Sugar is grains, any grain, rice.
Remember Tanath talking about this on when we had Tanath and Subfire, and about how dangerous the grains were.
Yeah, grains. They turn into sugar when you chew them. Roots, unfortunately, sweet potatoes are my favorite thing, you know. I'm taking a meal plan now where I can't have all this stuff. Grains, beans, fruits, roots, nuts, cashews. Oh, dark chocolate cashews. At some point in my life, I might have done just about anything for. I love those. But it's not just necessarily the sugar that does things to your body, but it feeds the bad gut bacteria, which is something that's really important to your entire system. And since I've stopped eating those things, my inflammation has gone down tremendously because of the voltage going through my arms and through my chest and my head. I have a lot of pain in my joints, and I kind of creak and crack and pop when I move around. And it's gotten tremendously better, both with this diet I'm doing and these Chinese herbs. If you're near Chinese herbs or you've been on the fence with it, it is amazing. The last 3 months of my life, I've been taking Chinese herbs 3 times a day, and now they bumped me down to twice a day. It has helped my blood flow and my cognition and words. I used to lose words. I'd be in the middle of a sentence and I would lose it. That's never had happened to me before. And so you're not fat, you're just toxic. Well, the process, as I understand it, and I'm no professional, this is stuff that I've learned because I've done it to myself and it's worked. So just sharing my personal experience.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, the sugar goes into your liver, and if it can't process it with the minerals and vitamins that you have from what you've eaten, then it turns it into fat and stores it away to deal with it later.
Yeah.
So sugar is that, and then you mix sugar in with all the other things that are out there in our world, all the water and the emissions from cars and the chemicals that I've worked with throughout my life. I mean, it turns into a cocktail of killing your liver, and your liver is very resilient. It will last, as I understand it, it'll last until it won't even show up as a problem until about 90% of it's dead. So take care of your liver.
Yeah.
It's really important, and it's helped my healing journey so much. And it's the hardest thing to quit. I have quit alcohol. I've quit tobacco. I've quit video games. I've quit so many things, but the sugar is so hard to quit. I have not fully quit it yet, but I'm trying.
A couple of things. You mentioned the Chinese herbs. Now,
Yes.
the Chinese. Funny enough, I mentioned this on the page early today. The Chinese had all the medicines in the 1300s that cured everything.
Wow.
And the Vatican went on a mission to China and came back with all ancient knowledge, which is where Leonardo da Vinci got all his ideas from. And the Medici family is got interested in the herbs and healing, and then from there on they took over it. So that's why we have the term medicine. It's because the one of the ruling families, the Medicis, which is the same as medical, same thing. It comes from their name and their family. They corrupted and monetized it from the 1400s.
There's that greed again.
The Chinese had all the cures long before other nations, and they also had a lot of ideas, which is where Leonardo da Vinci, who, as I understand, either went there or one of his people that worked with him, then passed on the knowledge of the Chinese, which is where he came up with all those drawings. They were not for him. They were copies of what came from China.
Wow.
So the Chinese had all the medicine.
Yeah, there's definitely something special about it, because as I understand it, so I have actually a story about acupuncture. This happened to me, I think it was the September 2014. I was taking my daughter across on the ferry. I live on an island. Taking my daughter across on the ferry to meet up with my father, who's going to take both of us to school, and then I'd eat some breakfast with my dad. And on the ferry boat, and I was not doing so good. I was drinking more I was in denial. I was in total denial that I was hurt. I was telling people, oh, I'm 70% recovered. I'll be back to work soon, because I wanted to. It's all I ever knew was work. It's all that ever actually felt like I got something out of in this world was working. And I didn't have that. So anyway, what happened was my daughter dragged me over to this booth. And these folks are there, and they're feeling people's pulses, and then they're telling them about their body, because they can feel the way that your body pulses blood and moves blood around.
Yeah.
And that's the first clue there. It's all about the blood flow. So the lady feels my wrist, and I'm really kind of in a hopeless place at the time, and the PTS is pretty strong at this point. And this lady feels my pulse, and the reaction was one of very genuine, oh my God, how are you still walking around? And she just, I saw her just step back and start shaking a little bit, and she just calmed herself down. And I remember her picking up the phone and calling into oh God, I can't remember the name of the place, but it's a place in the town close to me. And they said, we have to get this guy in here. I've never felt a pulse like this. He's in real bad shape. Can we bring him in tomorrow? I know we have a company shutdown meeting thing that we do, because it's also a school apparently. And so, I agreed to come in the next day, and I go in there, and there's these 12 acupuncturists. And at this point, it's kind of like if you hold your eyelids halfway open from your eyes, it's like that. You can only see half of everything around you is kind of this feeling that I have. And, they were feeling my pulses and talking amongst themselves. I had no idea what was going on. The guy, his name is Bob. He goes, you go to the nearest diner and you have the saturated, fattiest foods you can find, all the protein you can get, and come back in here. And they stuck a bunch of needles in me, which was not very much fun, but it absolutely cleared me up. I was really disorienting, because all of a sudden my eyes were wide open, kind of a thing. And it was just the blood flow. They're manipulating your nervous system to move blood into areas where it needs it.
Yeah.
And that's what acupuncture is. That's what Chinese herbs is. It's moving blood around. So it's very, very helpful. And it helps even more when you can get rid of that sugar, which is toxic and everywhere.
Absolutely. Of course, we covered the dangers of alcohol in Humanity Unplugged 2 back in October time, I think it was, somewhere around there anyway, which kind of ruffled a few feathers, because of course some people do like alcohol. The dangers is it punctures holes in the soul, and it also weakens your PSI field, which is your own vessel protection, which then leaves you open to predator beings during the so-called dream time. And so it's something that people should really consider. Everything is okay in moderation, but we're being saturated with it. A lot of the favourite sports teams, doesn't matter what sport it is, they're run by beer companies or tobacco companies, and the danger is now is of course there's a lot of legalization of pot, and a lot of people think that that's absolutely fantastic, but that also puts holes in your soul, whether people like that or not. The cannabis oils has wonderful health things, but you've got to eat it, not smoke it.
Yes, the CBD is actually something I'm doing, and it is a nerve protectant. So it's the benefits of it are far different than the THC version, which is makes my brain crackle. I can't touch that stuff. So, but the CBD is very helpful, especially full plant CBD. It's very effective. It helps a lot.
And if we're gonna get a system where they're more interested in cures, then that has to be included, including the ancient medicines as we know it,
Mm-hmm.
it's called now, rather than just pumping anything into us, was basically the Western population, which is more prone to the drugs and the pharmaceutical, are giant guinea pigs and collection machines, because they just keep. Doctor takes backhanders from the pharmaceutical people to sell this particular drug. Doctor doesn't know what's in it. I remember a lady called, was it Springmeister or something like that, who worked in Switzerland, and she was on Kerry Cassidy. Quite brave of her to step forward at the time. I think it was somewhere around 2009, 2010-ish.
Wow.
Basically, she went to the FBI and the CIA, and because she worked in the labs that were creating the vaccines, and they were putting the AIDS virus in and all kinds of other Spanish flu and everything, and she alerted them, and she had to go underground for a while, because the pharmaceutical industry is worth, from what I gather, somewhere around $3 trillion a year in America alone. And then you've got the clown doctors I think the guy was in Wisconsin. He got caught telling cancer patients that they had cancer. 2,400 of them. And
Wow.
he didn't. And so when people turn around to me and say the doctor knows best, I go, really? Well, Clive DeCarla, I'll use him again, because he's got into the research of the training of doctors and training of nurses, and not 1 minute in 7 years is on cures. And
Wow.
It's all about how basically a hospital is a drug pusher. It's a fancy drug pusher, and so is the doctor's surgery. They just want to give, I'll take this pill, see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll give you another one. And meanwhile, they're collecting, and they also collect X amounts of pounds or X amounts of dollars, depending on which country, for each vaccine. But they don't know what's in them. And that's why I've said recently, schools are telling the kids they've got to have all these vaccines. Well, you take a contract in and make the person giving your child the vaccine liable. You write up a contract and says you're suggesting that this vaccine is clean, and so you, if you administer it to my child, will pay $1 billion damage if my child gets injured or ill after this vaccine. Then the responsibility is on them, not the parents. Because if they don't sign it, it means that they're not sure of what's in it, because they're not anyway. And if they don't sign it, then that child doesn't get that vaccine until that nurse goes and investigates what they're putting in those vaccines. It makes her or he personally responsible for administering it, because he just jabbed the kid and yeah, the doctor said these are great. Really? But the doctor doesn't know either. And this is the big problem. So, anyway, we kind of got off track. I think we covered the sugar, and your next bit you want to talk about, and I suppose this is more to do with the grounding and your recovery, is the hidden life of trees, people and plants.
Yes. So this is another book. If you can't tell, I read a lot. This book, Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben, is a great book. It kind of confirmed a lot of instinct things I had, especially after I got zapped. I was feeling a lot more comfortable around trees and plants, and I was much more interested in them than I had been. I get these feelings from these things, and it could be anything, but all I know is that in my gut there is a very big, comfortable, warm feeling that happens when I'm around these plants. And my theory is, when you're going into the woods, and there's actually a philosophy in, I think it's Japan, it's called nature bathing. So when you go, and I think Halitha talked about this. So when you go into nature, you're existing in a place where there's nothing trying to sell anything to you. There's nothing trying to take anything away from you. They're just living their life. They're actually just trying to stand up as straight and balance as much as they can. That's what these trees and plants are doing. They're living, and they're not taking anything from you. They're not giving you anything, not demanding anything.
Yeah.
And it was a very wonderful thing for me to go through with the nature bathing. There's a program in a nature reserve near here called Strolls for Well-Being, and it's I think there's 12 different themes for strolls, but you pick out a theme. It was joy. What are the other ones? I'm blanking on the different ones. There's a bunch of different themes, and they're all very balanced. Future and I'm losing that piece there.
Different emotional.
Different emotional pieces of the human, and you consider that topic. You look at some of these quotes, but you're also walking through this place thinking about them, and I got so much out of that. And at the time, I really needed that in my life, and it helped me a lot. Yet another thing, and there's hundreds of things that I've done to get better. I'm willing to try just about everything as long as it's safe and natural. And I picked up this.
Carry on.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. So I was gifted this book. I believe my sister gave it to me. So here's a few things about trees that you might not have thought of. I know I did not, and it just blew me away. So trees are the opposite of humans. They're very still. They exhale what we breathe, and we exhale what they breathe. They feel exponentially slower than we do. They feel, that's right. So when you grab your own hand, instantly you feel that. Or on a tree, if you put your hand or do anything to it, the signal moves 1/3 of an inch per minute. That's very slow. So there are certain kinds of trees that when they're bit by a bug, not only can they tell what kind of bug it is by the saliva. I can't do that. It's amazing. They not only can they tell what kind of bug it is if they know of it, if they know the predator, they will send the pheromone signal of the predator, whether it's a bug or a bird or something. It sends out that signal to have something come and take this bug off of it. That is far more awareness and intelligence than I gave them any credit for. Another thing to think about, when trees are damaged by someone, they will give off I think it's the chemical equivalent of a scream, if I remember correctly. So not only do they remember that person from next day, but for a year later, they will give the same chemical panic, because that's that same person that ripped my, I don't know if it's an arm or what, but on the other end, it does remember kindness. It remembers that when you water it, when you pet it or talk to it. I know it sounds sounds a little odd, but it's very true. Trees are a companion to us, I believe. And this book explains with scientific detail and what is happening with certain trees.
The tree is like a compact disc. It's the Akashic. They chose to keep the memory, which is why they have all the rings. Humans in the past chose to take the City of Light pill and lose the memory, to forget the trauma, forget the pain of the time. And that's why certain people resonate more with the trees than others. And some will hug the trees. Basically, you're tapping into the akashic of that tree as time that's spent on this planet, including the saplings. We used to have bigger trees. I think it was covered last year. A lot of these flat top mountains are the ancient trees. They're not mountains at all. They're petrified wood. And so the likes of what's known as the Devil's Tower in Wyoming, you look at it, it's not a mountain. It's clearly a tree, an old tree. And some of the trees that were on this planet many, many years ago were 2 and 3 miles high because we had more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And that creates a larger growth pattern, not only in the trees, but in the fruits and the plants, and also in the beings. Why do you think dinosaurs went that big? Same thing. And then, of course, they all got cut down and everything got reduced. Everything on this planet now is a reduction of what it was previous. Because if it goes smaller, it's easier to control. That's why people resonate with the trees. Basically, you're hacking into the life force of the past, because that tree has all the memory. Like you say, elephants have long memories. Same thing. They chose to keep the memory of the traumas and everything else that went into life, whereas humans in the past chose to forget it all. And only now, in these times, are some of us starting to remember the things of the past lives, the past traumas, the past joys. Maybe you were someone else in a previous lifetime. Lots of people coming up with those theories now, although I wish there wasn't so many Jesuses and Marys. Everyone seems to be a Jesus or a Mary in a previous lifetime. But that's the way it is. But that's, and that's the trees and nature is your grounding again, isn't it? Which you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that really helped you?
Yes, it really helped me. It kind of just gave me a safe place. Because, there's something with my ears nowadays where there's no filter. I can't just filter out the sound of something like, oh, here you go, Thomas. Just a little jab at you. Yeah. The swallowing when you drink water, for me, in the past I had no problem with it, but now it just makes me cringe because I don't have the filter to be able to kind of block it out or be okay with it. So walking down the street or being in a room with I'm up to about 10 people now, I'm proud to say. I need earplugs. I need earplugs. And then when I put earplugs in, the constant oscillating ringing in my ears gets louder. So I haven't enjoyed a moment of silence in 3 years now, and it's painful for me. Yeah. But that's a place where I can at least find and make friends with that noise I hear in my ears. And also I want to just send out just a quick little challenge to all of you listening. Yeah. You pick out a plant, a house plant, a plant you find some draw to, make friends with it. I'm serious. Go talk to it. I know it sounds a little strange. Maybe if you don't want to talk to it, just water it. Just rub its leaf a little bit. And then sit with it after a while, after you've been given it kindness. Sit with it for a while and see what happens. You'll be surprised at what happens.
You mentioned about the sound issues. So you're having difficulty with meditation at all? Or have you tried?
I was up until I was on a retreat. So I went to 2 weekends to be a part of this MKP thing, and then I went back to actually staff and help one of the weekends. And there was this man there who was a yogi. He had studied very much so in his prayer closet. He's I believe it was Hindu, and we were cleaning up after the weekend, and he just kind of turned to me and he said, that that sound you're hearing, I've been meditating for a year, 30 minutes a day to hear that sound. That is the sound of the universe in my belief system. And the story I had was I got 2 tube TVs strapped to my head because I fucked up, because I'm guilty of hurting myself. And it lifted this huge load off of me. And I was like, I want that story. That's my new story. That's what I'm telling myself. And ever since, it's just the sound of the universe to me, and it's helped me a lot deal with it. And, I have gotten a lot further in my meditation and my breathing exercises that I do because of it. And if I ever see that guy again, I'm giving him a big hug because it really helped me a lot. So that was
good stuff. Right, we're going to have another quick music break. Do you want to introduce the next song?
Yeah, so this next song is by an artist named Grouch, and I really like this guy a lot. He is very awake and aware, and his hip hop is the real hip hop. It has a story, it has a struggle, it has a lesson. A lot of this, what I call crap or commercialized rap out there, it just does not resonate with me. But and I want to say this, there are thousands of artists in all genres who are the real deal and who are living it and being their most genuine selves through music. And what's on the radio is it's tired tread. And I hope that someday we can liberate that radio and play some real artists who have some powerful words of wisdom and emotions to share. So yeah, enjoy. This is called My Best Teacher.
Yes, a good selection by Patrick Pepper, our guest today. You always are your own best teacher. This is why many of us struggled at school. Not because we're arrogant, but because we knew the right way. And more and more people are realising that now. The stuff Patrick's covered and the bits I've chimed in about how society tells you one thing, but is exactly the opposite. That's been the theme for the hour and 3/4 basically this show's been going. And the only real truth is in yourself. Patrick,
Hey. Yeah.
And that song,
Yeah.
I'm not a lover of rap, but I did enjoy the words in that because you are the teacher.
Yep.
And this is again getting into limitations of ourselves. Oh, I'm just
that's right.
Yeah, I'm just this, or I'm just that, or I can't do this, and I can't do that. Yep. Everyone is capable of being anything they want as long as they put their mind to it.
I lived there, man. I lived there for a long time. I was in a really bad way. And, all this stuff that you're hearing, me being able to speak clearly and have all this stuff ready to go, all this stuff I've read, it's been hard work. This is not easy at all, but it's so very worth it. You're worth it. Everybody is so very worth this. It's important to love yourself and to get in touch with who you are, and it's so hard to do, but it's so very worth it.
Well, that's about perspective, about what's hard and what's not, isn't it? And your next topic kind of runs into this in many ways. Again, it's about you being personally responsible and you recognizing your own hidden and latent abilities. And this next subject is going to be about self-directed learning.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing. Once again, this is a book from my sister. This book I have read cover to cover, I think 5 times since I gotten it. It's pretty short. It's a book called The Art of Self-Directed Learning by Blake Bowles. And it has a lot of really good things in there. It's like it's everything I wish I had heard about or was taught about for learning, the love of learning. I didn't have a love of learning other than things I was interested in. Now let me just kind of try to describe what a self-directed learner is. Self-directed learners take full responsibility for their educations, careers, and lives. Think hard about where you're going, research all of your options, and then move boldly forward. That's basically what a self-directed learner is.
Yeah.
And one of the most important and powerful things that I had read was a topic called consensual learning. And I just want to read this. It's pretty quick. Looks like 2 pages here that are pretty short, but I just want to read this. And this is Blake Bowles talking about consensual learning. Directly after college, I took an emergency medical technician course. Hungry to build practical hands-on skills after 16 years of abstract academia, I hoped the first class would jump straight into the good stuff. How to stop massive arterial bleeding, stick a pen into someone's trachea to help them breathe again, or a splint of femur fracture. Instead, we talked about consent. Emergency medical technicians, I learned, can make all sorts of mistakes. Show up at a car crash and just start moving people around, you might aggravate a spinal injury. Treat a child without her parents' permission, you might get yourself in deep legal trouble. The basic principle was, don't help someone without asking first. Get consent first. Because when you think you're helping, you might actually be hurting. After that lesson, I thought back to my entire K through 12 schooling experience. Despite the number of kind-hearted and well-intentioned people who played a part in it, how many ever asked for my consent? How many asked me and seriously engaged me in the questions? Did I actually want to go to school? Did I actually think this assignment was a good idea? Was this class actually worth my time? And what else have I done with my time instead of sitting bored? School, I realized, is a terrible place to learn consent, which is a shame considering that consent is the cornerstone of every healthy relationship and community I've ever encountered. To me, consent means understanding what you're committing to, knowing what the alternatives are, saying yes while retaining the power to say no. To illustrate, let's say you're thinking about signing up for a cooking class. Consenting fully to this class means reading the course description carefully, finding the reviews of the class, comparing it with other available classes, and understanding the refund policy. Having done this research, you're ready to make an informed decision about taking the cooking class, while always reserving the power to walk out. Now imagine applying this method to every educational system in your life. That's the daily work of a self-directed learner. That was so powerful for me to read that and to think about my school career. And I think it's a huge issue, not just in learning, but everywhere, for everything. And it's also the power that most of these greedy cockroaches have. That's their power. It's your consent. So
because
really,
we consented to too much. That's the problem. Right. That's what I mentioned earlier.
And we have unknowingly consented to stuff we don't know. So we get ourselves into these really rough situations. And going back to that book that I referenced a while ago, The 4 Agreements, it talks a lot in there about your agreements and how powerful they are. The smallest one, the biggest one. And there's a chapter in there that talks about reviewing all of your agreements to everything. It was really powerful. So I thought I'd share that with you.
It's a valuable learning lesson for us all, because this is the biggest problem I mentioned earlier about why we have a control system, why we have the cabal or the 1% or chimera or whatever else you want to call it. It's because we've consented to everything. We've allowed them to control the way life operates, be it how nurses and hospitals are run, or the worst thing, in my opinion, is how the educational system is run. None more so than in this country. This country's education is worse than everywhere else, bar none. It's a shocking indictment that we have got the levels of education that's in this country. And the reason
Yep.
being is we always thought that the people in power or in authority, or alleged authority, because they don't have any unless we give them it, know better than we do. It being too convenient. I focused a portion of the show a couple of months back about being too convenient, where we just give things away, and then we complain that we've not got this and we've not got that, but without realising our own faults and how much we've given our own power away to reach what we've got now.
Yep. Got to review those agreements. Got to take into account every piece of it.
And so self-directed learning is for each and every individual to learn how to operate in a better way. If you don't like this government and want certain things to do with how your money is spent, then the simple solution is, I don't like any of these politicians, I'm not voting for anybody. Because then they have a problem. Because then they have nowhere to go. They can't take us all out as much as certain individuals would like to. So when you get to a situation where the whole country decides, you know what, we're not voting for you. You haven't delivered a single thing that we wanted. You've just gone ahead and spent money in Iraq and money in Afghanistan and give money to the daughter's gimmick foundation, and on it goes. Because we gave them consent to do so by voting. So unless we get someone from our community in that position who we can actually vote for, who's going to actually deliver what we want in life, better health, better education, etc., etc., then you're always giving your power away.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, the self-directed learning is something I'm just now starting out on. I mean, I've had this book and this concept for I think 2 months now, and it's really helped me look at things, because instead of having just one right answer, you look for more than just one right answer. I mean, there's just so many pieces where just focusing on your area and taking care of what's around you and caring about it. Because, you know, we all want the intel. We all want to pay attention to the macro, the big stuff that's happening. But the most important piece is what's right in front of you, right this very second. Whatever it is, whether it's, you know, well, for instance, I'm in my bedroom and I kind of threw everything off the desk. You know, I need to pick that up later. You know, that's important to my wife that I do that. And just, there's just so many little pieces, and it's the only reason that I'm talking to you right now is that I made an agreement with myself that I was going to get as good, as healthy as I possibly could. And that's one foot in front of the other, whether it was the coconut oil, whether, you know, the, agreeing to go to counseling. I mean, you know, all these things have added up into who I am now. And a lot of us do this self-directed learning thing anyway. It's just there's a whole bunch of tips and tricks and little pieces you can add to it to make it really effective.
You mentioned about,
you know, personalize it, you know?
Yeah.
Make it yours. Own it.
The micro and the macro. I'm going to make a statement now that a lot of people won't like, but it's the truth. The people are the micro to the cabal's macro, except we are the macro problem and they are the micro. And once people take a step back and realise that the answers were always us, then we'll be able to move forward an awful lot quicker than we are now. So, self-directed learning and learning from your shadow, you've gone through quite a shift of service of the self to be service to others. And,
Yes.
You mentioned yesterday that you like working with hands, which falls into the next topic, made by hand, do-it-yourself movement, and empowering yourself. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. My hands were my money makers. I was very gifted, physically with my hands. I was very, fast and strong and endurance and all this stuff. One of my favorite parlor tricks was I could grab a balled up napkin out of your hand before you could close it, and I could do it. And I was, I don't mind tooting my own horn every once in a while, and I was a badass. I was awesome. And I've lost that now. I drop things. In fact, if I hit my funny bone, it ain't fucking funny at all. I crumple into a piece of paper and cry for my mommy. It is a brutal experience for me because of the damage to my nerves. And, I have had to give up a lot of my beloved, activities. I was a river raft guide for a while. I did a lot of things with my hands. I loved working with my hands, and I thought that was lost until I found this book called it's Made by Hand, Searching for Meaning in a Throwaway World, and it's written by a man named Mark Frauenfelder. I think I'm saying that right. But it's written very well, and it has a lot of really interesting information in it. I posted a while back about Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew, who, let's see, what was he persuaded people to buy products and proposals through tantalizing depictions of fantasy worlds that stoked their unconscious urges, instincts, and sexual impulses. His campaigns sidestepped rational thought, appealing to the subconscious parts of the mind, the shadow, parts immune to logical argument. That man was probably the single most unheralded, terrible thing that ever happened to this country. He emigrated here, and it started out innocent, but soon the powers that be grabbed a hold of how powerful this was, and it's all your cigarette advertising. And I think World War I was advertised in this way. Pretty much everything from 1911 on was advertised in this method, and it's a part of the machine that's running right now. These advertisements, these commercials that I despise so much.
It kind of rolls into the time when the Federal Reserve people rolled into town.
Right. There you go. I think he was a part of it. Okay, so there's so much in this book that I want to share, but I'm gonna go to the conclusion of everything he talked about. And he talks about permaculture, which is a fascinating, it's not a science, but it's like what's that called? A horticulture method that takes plants that do certain things and puts them next to each other so that they can run in a little mini ecosystem off of each other and continue to run without any kind of bug spray or netting or anything because of the different kinds of plants and their different skills. So let's see here. The rise of do-it-yourselfism. There's a quote here. In almost all the varied walks of life, amateurs have more freedom to experiment and innovate. The fraction of the population who are amateurs is a good measure of the freedom of a society. That was a quote by Freeman Dyson in a book called In Praise of Amateurs. So he kind of summarizes his journey here a little bit. When I embarked on my amateur adventure, my do-it-yourself friends warned me not to become discouraged by the mistakes I'd inevitably make. I accepted their advice, but I grossly underestimated just how many mistakes that would be. In fact, I never have stopped screwing up. Errors erupt like mushrooms in whatever project I work on, no matter how small or simple. For example, I recently built some bookshelves for our family room. at the start, I felt as though I'd gained enough skill with woodworking that the project should be a breeze. After all, how difficult could it be to saw lumber and paint it white and attach it to the wall? After a visit to Home Depot to purchase the necessary materials, I went to work with high expectations. The first piece of lumber I cut was 2 inches too short, and even though I had used a T-square to mark the cut lines, the cuts didn't end up at 90-degree angles. After painting the lumber, I realized that the paint shade was too light, it didn't match the existing shelves. I poked around under the stairs and found an old paint can that seemed to match, but ended up being off as well. When it came time to attach the skewed, off-colored shelves to the wall, I couldn't find my level. I downloaded a level application for my iPhone, which seemed to work pretty well, but somehow in the middle of installing the shelves, I accidentally re-zeroed the level, so I was about 5 degrees off kilter. Then I discovered that I had bought the wrong kind of shelving hardware. I could go on about the errors I've made over the next couple of days installing those shelves, but why embarrass myself further? In the end, though, the shelves ended up looking okay. Under casual inspection anyway. At this point in my journey, I'm so used to making mistakes that I'm no longer discouraged by them. I know that once in a while a mistake will reveal a better way to do something. In addition, making mistakes means that I'm challenging myself.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up really nicely, and not just do it yourself and finding things that you can do. Like, for instance, don't laugh at me, but I am making my own fire logs. I'm taking a bucket and tearing up pieces of cardboard and tearing up pieces of paper. So you have to have cardboard and paper because the paper kind of turns into a glue. But then you fill it with water and smush it down and dump out the water and then wait a day or two and then flip it over and let it dry in a dry place. So I'm making my own fire logs.
Good stuff.
I mean, that's just one little example of it.
The thing about do it yourself is it increases your own abilities and your own self-confidence, and it also saves you a lot of money.
And you would be amazed at the things you can do.
Yeah.
Like I said, I thought I lost all of my do-it-yourselfer stuff, but there's so many things with electronics, with permaculture, with just so many pieces of being able to make and modify your own things that you have in your house right in front of you. I mean, just changing out the handles in your drawers is actually really fun. So there's just so many things that are out there. The possibilities are absolutely endless.
Well, this kind of comes back to what I mentioned recently on the show about limitations and putting yourself in a box.
Hey, I did it.
You know, I
did it for a long time.
I was kind of known for being a painter and a wallpaper hanger back in the UK. Although I did.
Oh, really? You could cut a brush, huh? You could cut a line.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, right on, man.
Well, one of the most extraordinary things, because you kind of go through stages in the UK, because it's different painting in the UK than it is in America, because
way more moist though.
The paint is oil in Europe, so you have to be more careful with it than you do with the water paint. Otherwise, the carpet gets ruined and you get all kinds of runs, as we know it. And I came here and I could do a little bit of tile, and then I realised I was doing certain things, and I thought, I'm watching others do it, and I'm kind of fussy. It has to be done right the first time, or I'm not doing it. If I can't do a job to 100% or as close to 100%, I will just not take it on. And I'm watching some of the so-called tradesmen doing plumbing and doing joinery, and I'm thinking, oh dear me.
There's a lot of pretenders out there.
I think I can do a better job. It might take me a little bit more time, but at least the job's going to look, as we say in England, spot on. You know, and I taught my own lads to do the same. If you're going to do a job, you do it properly the first time. Don't cut corners. I said, this is why I never get called back to fix things. you end up. I didn't have to advertise because I always got one job, called back to do a different job in the house, or I was referred on because I did things the right way the first time. And
Right on.
have I made mistakes? Yeah, I remember doing a kitchen, and it was one of those awkward pattern ones. And I managed to put all, there was a fruit and vegetable, and all the apples and the fruit were all upside down. Thankfully, it was only 2 rolls, but I was I'd already done it. At that time, I was doing 2 jobs in the one day to get more money to come to America. And I was kind of rushing. It was about 6 o'clock, and just cut them all up, pasted it, and put them on. And I went, oh no. But that's the way it goes. But I want you to focus on, you lost some abilities, or you felt you lost some abilities.
Mm-hmm.
They're not permanently lost. It's just a case of readapting. What I'm listening to you today and yesterday, you've adapted in so many other ways.
Yeah,
perhaps
that is credit to my father. He didn't have a system. He didn't have a method. It was.
No, the credit is you, Patrick.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right.
No.
Right. It's hard for me to take compliments sometimes.
No, the credit is you. You did it. This is what I say on the show. I can talk about grounding and ascension, but I can't do it for you. And people say to me, well, you've made a big difference. No, you've made the difference because you took the time. And
chose to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And that's the key.
Well said, well said.
I've had a number of injuries, and I've just learned to adapt. I'm still able to do everything I used to do before, but you have to adapt different ways. And credit to yourself. Yes, you might want to give some credit to your father, but ultimately it's down to you. And you've learned to adapt in different ways. And so you've kind of come to what is your last topic tonight, about the power of now. And
this one right here. There is a reason that I kept this for the last one. Not necessarily because I'm going to spend the most time on it, but it is the most important piece, in my opinion, and it's the most important piece for me. My mind's eye is absolutely scrambled. I used to have some really nasty panic attacks right after I got cooked. And it was very uncomfortable for me because I had never, ever been scared of nothing in my life. I was to a fault sometimes not scared of things. And this stuff, the things that I would see and the sensations and what my body was going through, discharging and getting rid of all this stuff and just trying to heal was just the most disorienting and terrifying thing I'd ever experienced. It was like as if you were sitting wherever you are and everything you can see. Now close your eyes and imagine all of it just smashing together in one big bubble of stuff. And then add in all of a sudden memories, trauma memories. I mean, it went on. And the first glimpse of the power of now, which is actually a book written by Eckhart Tolle, but the first now that I felt was, so I got hurt and almost died on my wife, and she got a baby out of me promptly. About 2 months later, she got pregnant, and for the birth, it was all natural, and it was with a doula and a midwife, and I was freaking out. It was really difficult for me. My anxiety was really bad at the time. I hadn't gotten to Bastyr Center for Natural Health. I hadn't given me the lithium. All I had was these breathing tools I got out of a book called Meditation as Medicine. And I would do these things, there's all these different breathing exercises, because I couldn't really do the mind things they were talking about, but I could do the breathing stuff, and it really helped me. really helped me during the labor that she was having. It really helped me in stressful moments when I wanted to high five somebody in the face or just say something really bad or, it was a really great tool for me to calm down and to focus on what was around me and be in the now and win. What's important now? So the Power of Now book, when I got a hold of it, just constantly blew my doors off and helped me so much. And over the course of I think it was about 9 months ago, right around when I sobered up, this book helped me in so many ways, and mainly because I like the way Eckhart Tolle explains the words that he uses. He doesn't just use words like enlightenment or consciousness. He explains what he means by them. And quite often the definition is a little different than what we've kind of collectively think of as enlightenment or consciousness. So this piece here, and really what it comes down to is your being instead of your mind. There are two separate things. So your being is kind of the observer that watches the mind. So as just a representation of, like an illustration is, there's a bunch of traffic. That's your thoughts, right? There's, 12 lanes of traffic, all these cars whizzing around. If you can find the hill near the traffic and sit on it and watch the cars go by and, study the make and model of the thought or whatever, and you'll be fine. But if soon as you start running out into traffic trying to steer cars, you're going to get run over and pounded. And I was repeatedly just pounded by my thoughts. I had no method of defense against all this onslaught of images and thoughts and memories. And it just I couldn't control my mind. It was very scary, that loss of control. And what I want to read to you is not the explanation of it, but it is the goal, the end goal. So you are not your mind. The greatest obstacle to enlightenment, or the greatest obstacle to being aware or your being. So enlightenment, what is that? A beggar had been sitting by the side of the road for over 30 years. One day a stranger walked by. "Spare some change," mumbled the beggar, mechanically holding out his old baseball cap. "I have nothing to give you," said the stranger. Then he asked, "What is that you're sitting on?" "Nothing," replied the beggar. "Just an old box. I've been sitting on it for as long as I can remember." "You ever look inside?" asked the stranger. "No," said the beggar. "What's the point? There's nothing in there." "Well, have a look inside," insisted the stranger. And the beggar managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw that the box was filled with gold. I am not that stranger who has nothing to give you, who is telling you to look inside. Or, excuse me. I am that stranger who has nothing to give you and who is telling you to look inside. Not inside any box, as the parable, but somewhere even closer, inside yourself. So,
Yes.
that really spoke to me very much so with this book, The Power of Now, which was really powerful for me. And I recommend the audiobook because his voice is very, soothing in some way.
Cool.
It really helped me in a lot of ways. And there's a lot in there that talks about the pain body, talks about the relationship of language and your emotions, and it really is a great tool for anyone who's willing to take a really hard look at your mind and the way that you think about things. And I would recommend it for everybody.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you've shown you've triumphed over many things. You've spoken of your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, and that's a clearing.
Yeah.
Releasing the baggage. This is what we've spoken of on the show. You can continue to, you can't continue anymore. The reality is people cannot continue to hide behind their masks of illusion,
Yep.
or covering up alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever else is going on in your life, your traumas, because it's all coming out, whether you like it or you don't. And the ones that have done the work, like yourself, and took the time, because it doesn't take much cost to invest in the self. We spend all this money that we've hard earned on external things that mostly have no value at the end of the day, when the biggest value is yourself. And we've kind of lost
that's very true.
that ability.
Yeah. And there's one more thing I'd like to share.
No,
when you get another really big thing for me, especially in December, this last December, when I finally got to go to see a neurologist who's the director of neurology at a university near here. And I was holding out hope that there's a picture they could take, that they could, look at something and go, oh, well, here's the problem, let's go fix it. Because that's, my mind is like that. I want to fix things. And to hear from him that I'm going to have these symptoms for the rest of my life, and that I need to accept them, and that I have done an incredible job of healing, and that was a real big turning point of accepting my circumstances and then figuring out how I could fix it, how I could change it. And one of the most powerful things for me, and once again, this is really simple, but it works, is I'm enough. I am enough. I tell myself almost every day, I'm a survivor, because my shadow, nobody can argue that. I have survived. And then the next thing I tell myself is I'm enough, because I am. I not just have to be, but I actually am. I am enough. I'm forgiven, and I'm grateful to be here. And I'm grateful to be, talking to you and vibrating my breath to make a sound and have you out there hear this. I'm grateful to be here and to be on this show. I'm grateful to be talking to you, Thomas, and, don't put anybody on a pedestal, at least not for a long time, put them on the pedestal and then take them back off, put them back down there, because I know in the past I've put you on a pedestal there, Thomas, so.
No,
I'm just remembering to put you back down next to me.
Yeah, because it's giving your own power away. One of the members of the team kept saying, it's an honor, it's an honor, it's an honor. And I go, if you don't stop saying that, you're off the team. Because it's, otherwise it's just creating the same system. We're trying to end this elitist system, not by creating another one, by making certain individuals more important than the other. No, we have to change
you can honor them, but then as soon as you understand that they're back in the muck with everybody else, it's a good thing.
So before we wrap it up and play your final song, anything?
What did I pick? I actually forgot what. What was it again?
The Shine.
Ah, yes. There you go. That's a perfect ending. I don't need to say anything. Just go out there and shine, folks. Just go out there and shine.
Right. Thanks to Patrick for telling his heartfelt story. We'll be back next Thursday with the usual show of fun and games and clowns and bullshittery and all that stuff. And we'll have another guest on next Sunday. I can't remember which one it was now. I think it was the ayahuasca woman. We will have a proper name next Sunday. She's been to all kinds of retreats and is exposing some of the criminality going on around that. And she wants to talk about healing and all kinds of other stuff. Very interesting woman. And so, providing I get all the lists together, I'm still waiting for an update. That should be here next Sunday. If not, it'll be the week after. So, thanks to you, Patrick, and thanks for
most welcome
for listening in.